Hello, fellow Rebel Capitals. Hope you're well. Hope you're sitting down for this one. Because France is on the verge of literally making it illegal to criticize what they want you to do from a medical standpoint. Just keep it YouTube friendly. And of course, all the people in the liberal media, the left-leaning media, whatever you want to call them, they're all coming out, oh, fact check, wrong. And you actually look at the fact check and you're like, no, that's exactly what it's saying. So let's get into the details. This is just crazy times that we live in. Crazy, crazy times. I mean, even going back to 2019, if you would have told me not just what they did in 2020 and 2021 when they locked you in a cage, let's not forget that they came out with the medicine passports. Let's not forget about that. Remember they said it was illegal for you to go into certain restaurants? I remember when I went and checked in a hotel in Washington, D.C., they asked me if I had a certain medicine, and I said no. And they said, oh, well, in that case, sir, you've got to wear this yellow ribbon around your wrist. I said, well, what is this for? She goes, this tells the store owners that you're not allowed in. So I said, let me get this straight. Because I have this yellow bracelet on, I'm not allowed to go into the coffee shop? She goes, that's correct. I'm not allowed to go into the restaurant? That's correct. That really happened in our capital, Washington, D.C. But now it's gone to a whole nother level of crazy. And back when I first started this channel, you guys will remember this, I was pushing hard against these, we'll call them mandates. And the people that were on the other side of that debate were saying, oh, you're exaggerating this. It's really no big deal. What are you worried about? Just go down and get the medicine. Who cares? I said, no. It's not just that. First of all, the trade-offs don't make sense. And secondly, this puts us on a very slippery slope. And we can see that now playing out right in front of our eyes with the World Health Organization, where they want control. They want all these countries to sign a pact that gives them control, or when they do the next lockdown, as an example, or what we're seeing with this bill. So let's get right into it. And just, when I read this stuff, here you go. They're calling it the Pfizer law. When I read this stuff, it almost doesn't sink in, where I still feel like I'm reading a sci-fi book, or like I'm reading the premise of an upcoming Minority Report movie. But then I have to kind of pinch myself and say, no, George, time out, dude. This is actually real. This is happening. France's Pfizer law, a bold move. I don't know if bold is the way that I would describe it, but a bold move against medicine criticism, or is it a step towards censorship? Well, without reading further, if you had to guess, what would you say? France's recent Pfizer law criminalizes criticism of certain medicines, which you guys can read right here. Raising questions about censorship, free speech, and the influence of pharmaceutical companies, explore the global implications of this controversial legislation. Now, keep in mind, this is not Fox News. This is, I don't know what this is. It doesn't really sound like a right-leaning group. The gal looks like she's Indian. So it looks like some sort of media outlet from India. So again, this is not Donald Trump saying this. This isn't the far-right extremists. And, this isn't Alex Jones talking. So in a world where the line between public health, I'm reading now, in a world where the line between public health safeguarding and suppression of free disclosure grows increasingly blurred. France has positioned itself at the forefront of the controversial legal battle. The country's recent legislative move, dubbed Pfizer Law, criminalizes the criticism of certain medicines, making a significant escalation in the global dialogue on censorship, free speech, and the role of pharmaceutical giants in shaping public policy, with penalties reaching up to 45,000 euros and 3 years in prison. Did you get that? Fines up to 45,000 euros and 3 years in prison. The law raises profound questions about the future of scientific debate and democratic freedoms, I'll say. So let's go over to another article where they, as you can imagine, they do this fact check. Now, what I've noticed going all the way back to 20 is whenever there is a great point that's made that's counter to the mainstream narrative, they have to immediately come out and fact check it. And the fact check only goes one way. Only. Like, just show me the fact check that has been done on something that is contrary to the mainstream media, that where they've actually said it was true. But yet, when we fast forward 6 months, it turns out to be true almost 100% of the time. But let's get into this. I highlighted some of what they said to try to justify their claim that this is misleading. And in doing so, you actually see how biased these fact checkers actually are. So they're saying that social media, of course, it's social media, social media, social media. You can't trust that social media. Just and whatever you do, don't do your own research. Remember that? Remember Forbes was saying that back in 2021. They said doing your own research is dangerous. That's right. But it turned out that everyone that did their own research was on the right side of history. Funny, I don't see any articles like that today in Forbes saying, whoops, my bad. Sorry, you guys were right. We are the ones that should have done the research. So social media users have claimed that France has made it illegal to criticize you. We just talked about this. This claim has surfaced in light of a bill on sectarian abuses passed by the French National Assembly on February 14th. So what's interesting is throughout this, they say that it hasn't been passed yet, but right at the beginning, they say that it has. Now, maybe this has been passed by this National Assembly, and then it needs another step. But we'll try to figure that out as we go through this post. One post on Twitter sharing the claim amassed 417,000 views. At the time of writing the post, claimed that anyone who advises against this medicine, the technology used in popular medicines, can in the future be imprisoned, like we said, up to 3 years, or fined up to 45,000 euros. The law means, and this is from the tweet, the law means persons can be fined. Okay, we got that. They say similar claims are being surfaced on TikTok. I'm sure they're talking about YouTube as well. And here they get into the actual facts. So they say, okay, well, this is a total misinformation, where they're talking about this person's tweet, or they're talking about the premise of the article that I just read from you, which was not from some right-leaning outlet. It was just from some sort of media group in India, for heaven's sakes. I don't know that they really have a dog in the fight over there. But here are the facts, they say. It's very important that we pay attention to the facts. The French government first floored the bill in November 2023 in an attempt to fight abuses in what they call Guru 2.0s. So don't listen to those people like Brett Weinstein. Don't listen to those people like Chris Martenson. No. You need to ignore them, those gurus, and just listen to us. because at the end of the day, we have your best interest as our priority number one. And we're the ones with all the facts and the data. Even though every single time they have said that, they have turned out to be wrong. And overtly wrong. Remember the whole safe and effective deal? Right? Oh, how safe and effective was it for a 20-year-old male? Didn't turn out to be too safe and effective, did it? But we'll just try to sweep that one under the rug and then still claim that we, the mainstream media, are on the right side of history. We were always right. And they just hope that people forget what really happened. But what's great about the internet is we'll never forget. We'll never forget because we got videos of all of it. So they say that what this is meant to do is these gurus, people with online followings who propose miracle solutions such as mistletoe injections, lemon juice for life-threatening diseases. So see, you can see how they're kind of spinning this. That, oh, no, this has nothing to do with people criticizing medicine. No. This only has to do with these gurus that would go out there and propose some sort of solutions that we tell you don't work. Oh, right. Like horse paste. Like that? Because if you're not talking about horse paste, how is that any different? It's exactly how they framed, and you guys know what I'm talking about with Joe Rogan. It's exactly how they framed what Joe Rogan decided to take instead of what the mainstream was trying to convince everyone they should. So what he did, especially with his following, for heaven's sakes, how would he not fall into this category? And go back to what the mainstream was saying back then. How would they not have accused him of this? And how would they not have convicted him? Now, I know he's not in France, but let's just assume that he was. I mean, that would have been a slam dunk case that Joe Rogan comes out. He is absolutely guru, has a massive following. And he comes out and proposes not a miracle solution, but basically, I mean, what is a miracle solution? You see, all these words can be defined any way that the central planners and authoritarians want to define them. And then life-threatening. Well, is the cerveza sickness not life-threatening? Of course it is. So they say after having passed in both houses of French Parliament, the bill has now been sent joint commission, where the members of Senate and National Assembly will try to find an agreement on final text before the law is signed into law. Okay, so this makes it sound like it's a foregone conclusion. At least that's how I'm reading this. So after its introduction, they said Article 4 sparked concerns among public about curbs on criticism for medicines in the future as proposed legislation made punishable. Provocation to abandon or abstain from following therapeutic or prophylactic medical treatment. So this was the original language, okay? But then they changed it, and that's why the fact checkers are saying this is fake news. But what you have to do is you can't just say, oh, well, they changed it. There you go. See, George, you got that tinfoil hat on again. I told you. No, you've got to actually read what they changed it to see if effectively there is any difference whatsoever. It's all in the fine print. So they say Jacques Petit, professor of administrative law and fundamental rights at this university, told Logically Facts that the original wording of the bill did run the risk of making criticism illegal. And then he used the example of what they just said. But then they said, but now you got nothing to worry about. And I'd like to point out that if these lawmakers weren't trying to take control over what you put in your body, or maybe if you can leave the house, or what restaurants you can go to or can't go to in the future, if they weren't trying to do that, why would they have put that verbiage in there to begin with? Like, you don't think that would have, if they were truly worried about people's freedoms, their rights, free speech, you don't think that would have kind of raised a red flag? Like literally the guy writing that, you don't think he's like, maybe this isn't a good idea that I phrase it this way? Of course not. It was intentionally phrased that way because they wanted to try to push it through without anybody noticing it. But now that someone notices it, then they have to do something about it because everyone sees that they're trying to implement tyranny, or how authoritarian they are, these central planners. And so then they have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, how can we rephrase this to where we can still implement the same thing? It still has the same teeth, but yet we can phrase it in a way that's different to where all of our buddies in the mainstream media can spin it to make it seem like we're not trying to do what we're really trying to do. Here you go. According to the amended bill, a copy of which is available on the official website of the French Senate, inciting by means of repeating pressures or maneuvers any person suffering from a pathology to abandon or refrain from following a therapeutic medical treatment. When such abandonment or let me get this straight here. Sorry, guys, I don't have my glasses on. When such abandonment is presented as beneficial to health of the person targeted, when, in light of current medical knowledge, it is clearly likely to have particular serious consequences for that person's physical, mental health, taking into account the pathology from which he or she suffers, is what constitutes a punishable offense. This is the new version. So what logically facts is saying is that, oh, no, this new version, no, that this is harmless. Klaus Schwab won't leverage this to persecute anyone that disagrees with him. Bill Gates, no. This and my rebuttal to that would be, okay, well, if this now has no teeth and we don't need to worry, why are we doing it in the first place? Like, why is the government even getting involved with this? If they have good intentions, if they favor free speech, then what are we even doing here? So let's go back to this and kind of dissect it. Inciting by means of repeating pressures or maneuvers. What does that even mean? What side? So let's go back to the Joe Rogan example. Right? He has a big audience. So wouldn't you be able to argue? And if he talks about this multiple times, couldn't you argue that that is putting a lot of pressure on these young males that are very impressionable, that look at Joe Rogan as an authority figure? Of course you could argue that. I mean, to think otherwise is just, it's so arrogant and condescending that they could change the verbiage like this and try to spin it as though we, like lapdogs, are going to just sit there and say, oh, well, yeah, well, this case, the way you wrote it, yeah, no problems here. Let's move along. It's insulting. It's insulting your intelligence. Any person suffering from pathology to abandon or refrain. Okay, so how about the cerveza sickness? Abandon or refrain from following therapeutic medical treatment. How is this any different? This is just different words saying the exact same thing. When such abandonment is presented as beneficial to health. So when you abandon a specific medicine that we know is good, then you are in jeopardy of violating this law. And they say it has to be in light of current medical knowledge. Well, who determines what that knowledge is? Oh, that's right. It would be the central planners. And let's go back to 2020 and what was considered common medical knowledge. How accurate was that? Now that we can look back, hindsight being 2020. You see, my point there is the current medical knowledge was almost always wrong. You would have been far better off to do the opposite of what current medical knowledge was over the last 4 years. Which, if you would have talked about that on a podcast, could have been perceived as putting pressure on your audience. Therefore, if you do it multiple times, you are in violation of this law. Let's keep going. He also noted that the bill, as adopted by the National Assembly, also punishes incitement to adopt practices that are presented as having therapeutic or prophylactic purposes when it's clear from medical knowledge that these practices expose the individual to an immediate risk or death. Oh, like horse paste. Like that? Or, I mean, how many other of these potential treatments was Brett Weinstein, as an example, talking about that would have fallen into this category based on how the mainstream media was spinning it? I mean, you could sit there and say, and I can't say the medicine, the horse paste, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about, right? But what the mainstream media did there is they say, well, if you're trying to ingest as much as the Joe Rogan types are talking about, well, this could be clearly detrimental to your health. Or what about taking something just like vitamin D? I mean, where do you get vitamin? Well, you get that from the sun. Okay, well, couldn't this National Assembly, if they wanted to throw somebody in jail that they didn't like, oh, I don't know, like Joe Rogan, like any of these podcasters, they could simply come out and say, well, look, these guys are telling you that one of the great ways to prevent this from happening is to get more vitamin D. And that requires going out in the sun. But everybody knows that if you go out in the sun, you're going to get skin cancer. So basically, they are exposing individuals to risk of death or injury. 3 years for you. Have fun with that. You see, this is the problem, that they make these things so vague that it means that basically any person they don't like is in violation of the law. Let's keep going. Petit gave 2 reasons why anti-medicine speech does not fall within the scope of this offense. Firstly, because it does not advocate the adoption of a practice, but it does. It does. Okay, don't do this, but do this. Don't do the medicine, but do the horse paste. Secondly, because failure to do this medicine does not involve immediate risk. Are you crazy? How about Biden coming out and saying that this winter is going to be mass death? Mass death! And this is a pandemic of the unvaxxed. You're telling me that a winter of mass death doesn't qualify as an immediate risk? It's the same garbage over and over and over. They got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. That's what happened here. The central planners got caught, hand in the cookie jar, and this went viral on social media. And then they had to say, oh, no, we've, no. Yeah, we've amended that. Now you got nothing to worry about. But the way they amend it, they do so in a way that can be spun to effectively do the exact same thing. But now they've built another narrative that their buddies in the mainstream media can run with to try to make it sound like anyone who claims that this is a problem is nothing more than a tinfoil hatter. Just absolutely crazy stuff. All right, guys. Well, this is a story that we're definitely going to have to pay a lot of attention to. I'm really looking forward to hearing Brett's take on this. Hopefully, he'll come out with a podcast with his wife this weekend. If you don't listen to his podcast, I'd strongly suggest it. Dark Horse. I'm sure my good buddy Chris Martinson is creating some content around this as well. You might want to check out his YouTube channel. And on that note, as always, make sure that you're standing up for freedom, liberty, free market capitalism, and free speech and freedom of choice. We'll see you in the next video.